Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to PMI for Central Indiana's chapter, our monthly event here for February. Greetings, everyone. Happy that you made it back here. Hey, curious, maybe none of my business according to those Duck, Duck, Go commercials, but how good is your tolerance with respect to risk? How far out on the risk curve do you think you ought to go? How far on the risk curve should the projects you work on go in order to get things done? Hey, I think we've got another great one tonight, really highly qualified speaker to help us all. I'm looking forward to learning about this, our risk intelligence quotient. So hang around with that. We're going to get right to that guest speaker in just a little bit. But it's another one of those things that we do to help you get from where you are to where you want to be in your professional career. And we think today's program is going to help that along with to some extent. Of course, we can't get to that, though, without doing these necessary things that we call announcements. Hey, if you're out there and you're new to the chapter, or perhaps you're newly certified as well, we'd like to, congratulations, we'd like to share in your celebration. So we'd appreciate it if you go down to that chat there in the lower right corner and go ahead and share with us what it is that you have recently achieved. Hey, I don't know if you've been to the PMICIC.org website, but we've had a refresh there. Same URL as usual, but stop on by, take a look at the new and rearranged content that we have there. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. Every month the board of directors of the chapter meet. It happens to be on the first Wednesday of the month, starts at 6:15. And actually, there are some ways for you to be able to perhaps participate or provide input to that. I'll have one of the board members talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Fourth bullet point down, don't lose your chapter benefits by having your chapter membership accidentally lapse without you knowing about it. Ensure that you're signed up for auto renew. And take a lesson from a guy who's been there. If your credit card changes somewhere through the course of the year, you got to go back in and change that too. All righty. Lastly, reminder, we'll have a survey once again for tonight's event. We did have some issues with last month's survey. Those have been remedied, and look for that survey banner to pop up near the end of today's speaker program. We really do appreciate and use the feedback. I will make this comment. One of the things that we're working to improve continually, pretty actively, is the networking session, the 30 minutes, it's about 25 minutes, that follows the speaker presentation, where we get a chance to all get on camera, share some words, meet each other in smaller group sizes. If you attend that, please complete the survey. If you opt out of that section, please don't complete that question on the survey. So we had no networking last month, but we had about 30 people that went ahead and somehow evaluated it. We didn't do very good, but we do use those numbers. We do use that data. So thank you very much. Hey, we're now to the segment here before we get on to the speaker where we hear from one of the board members. This month, I'd like to welcome our Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Erica Perlee, to share with us some of the collective thoughts of what's going on in the board's brain. Erica, hi, and welcome.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Hello again. I wanted to start off first by reiterating, month after month, we remind you that our mission is to take our members from where they are to where they want to be professionally, ensuring membership value while sustaining the chapter through whatever challenges we may encounter. I'm going to be touching on 3 operational items tonight where your awareness input will contribute to getting things moving forward for the benefit of you and all of our members in the community. So first is the program survey. Thanks for bringing that up, Rich. And any general chapter surveys for that matter that come out. So we truly are looking for your feedback to guide our decisions to pursue one path as priority over another. So I hope it is no surprise that our programs team does review these responses when considering methods of delivery, registration processes, and the program topics and speakers that we aim to seek out. We know quite clearly that our programs team has achieved a standard of excellence in delivery with our online virtual programming, and your responses have indicated just that, with ratings for our events, our speakers, and our topics at about 4.7 to 4.8 stars, indicating that about 73% feel that it's an excellent program. And then about 27% still feel that it's about good to fair. So we take that as good marks. We do have some work to do on networking, with ratings coming out around 3.6 stars, or about 19% feeling that it's excellent, 72% feeling that it's good to fair. And thanks to our MC Rich, we hope to bring you some of those improvements tonight. What we are also seeing is the growth of reach through these virtual programs, growth in reaching the community, to include more members who were not previously able to attend programs when they were only in person, as well as additional attendees, some who are even coming from out of state, which again will increase your networking potential. So the topics of interest that we have seen indicated on the survey, it runs the gamut really, from business leadership and technical requests such as scientific project management in pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, drug development, and even agriculture. So as well as continued interest in agile topics, from tips, tricks, techniques, and what to expect in an agile environment. So we are also hearing that there's an increased interest in more programs that are focused on career opportunities, like guidance in industry pathways, local job opportunities, and mentorship for career development. And that leads me to my second item, membership value discussions, particularly being had at our board of directors meetings. So as you hear in the announcements, month over month, we do meet every first Wednesday of the month in a virtual meeting. And if you care to join as a member, please contact any one of us directly for more details to get that access. But I want to bring it up today because time and time again, we have great discussions at these meetings about new strategies, initiatives to start new projects focused on increasing our membership value. These include things like industry subgroups, educational partnerships, academic outreach initiatives, career development programs, and members-only discounts to various local services, all of which would be ideal offerings if we could implement them immediately. But alas, the one common denominator is a lack of capacity with the small group of volunteers that we currently have giving up their time and talents. So I encourage you to consider responding to the survey tonight, but also starting to look at your calendar of availability to give a little time to launch any particular service that you are looking for from our chapter. While our operational goals for 2022 will continue to be focused on volunteer and membership needs, we want to encourage every one of you to consider what time you may have to contribute to our organizational success in meeting our members' professional needs as well as your own. So we will continue to announce various volunteer opportunities through new and existing channels, and we want you to know that it doesn't have to be a big time commitment to start, just giving a little bit each week where you can. If you should have any further questions about the operations of the chapter, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my email address is vp@pmicic.org. And now on to my last item regarding our annual conference. So mark your calendars and make plans for attending September 15th through the 16th of 2022 to attend the Pro Dev Day event, Professional Development Day. As you can see, we actually will be having a multiple day event. Again, both with virtual speaker programs and an additional opportunity for local in-person activities as well. As before, we are always looking for volunteers, both in helping to plan as well as just day of volunteers, but we do offer discounts to those volunteers according to the time that they're able to give. So consider that. Also consider if you just want to attend or join us in attending solo, that's great, or possibly gathering a group and take advantage of our group registration rate. But other than that, again, just look for the website, prodevday.com. We do have a little bit of updates there, but more information to come soon. So enjoy the programming tonight. And with that, I send it back to you, Rich.
Erica, thank you very much for that information, that insight from the board. All righty, gang. It's this slide, the black and white one here with some gray tones on it. And you know the excitement is about to come. But first, some comments about nice, polite behavior. So we believe in PMI that honesty, responsibility, respect, and fairness are like really important, valuable qualities, and we should practice and exercise them even in our industry and profession. Note that all work that's presented here tonight in this program is the intellectual property of the presenters, and as such, views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by said presenters are those, not necessarily those of PMI or PMI-CIC. And finally, unauthorized reproduction or distribution of content from this is naughty and punishable under federal law. We happen to have an expert in federal law, I think, coming right up here in just a second. So let me get on to the guest speaker portion of this. Folks, Bob Mailer is Senior Director of Business Development at Velociteach, who has had, one could say, a notably high level of experience and risk. You see, Bob served 12 years in the U.S. Army in mechanized infantry and as a Green Beret, leaving the service as a highly decorated combat veteran. And Bob, on behalf of our entire audience here tonight, we thank you and we appreciate very sincerely your service for our country. Now, from there, Bob's taken on different roles, industry roles in telecom, and he's managed immense infrastructure projects, including massive disaster recovery efforts, such as from various hurricanes, wildfires, mass shootings, and other federal law enforcement needs. On a less harrowing front, Bob has served on several PMI board positions, and he's a risk SME contributor to PMBOK. He comes to us today from Tennessee, where he is currently managing risk manifested while raising a son who just entered the teenage years. That could be very risky. Please join me, perhaps in chat, in welcoming our special guest speaker today, Bob Mailer. Hi, Bob.
All right. If I got this right, give me a thumbs up, Rich. I'm telling you, just listening to my bio, it really made me tired. I think I'm going to go do something boring in the near future because that really, wow, I've lived a really long time. Thank you, chapter folks, for coming out. I apologize that there was nothing on TV and you decided to get a PDU instead. So I certainly appreciate it. I want to have fun. I want it to be interactive and respectful, particularly if I screw something up. So don't be afraid to throw some questions out there. You folks are very welcome for my military service. It's something I did when I was young and dumb and didn't understand my own mortality. And now I do every day when I get out of the bed and my knees snap, crackle, and pop like I'm breaking sticks. So it's just something you do when you're young and you really have nowhere else to be. So here we go. Risk intelligence, risk EQ. So let's see what we have. So this is me. I am the director, senior director. It's really just a title. It really doesn't mean anything. Of business development with Velociteach. I've been there about 11 years, which is really important because normally I get fired long before that. I am a certified project manager, certified risk manager, which is my passion. That is my cell if you need me. I'm on LinkedIn, also known as White Collar Facebook. You can find me. I'm real easy. That's a picture of my feet leaving a ramp at 12,500 feet. So as Rich said, I do have a unique perspective on risk, and we'll get further into that. A decorated combat vet simply means I went to combat, got some awards. It's really not that big a deal. I dust them off once in a while. It was an interesting time. I spent 12 years in, and I really got the bug for risk, risk seeking. And then I got out. One day I just quit. I decided I'd had enough because I was really interested in trying to see what it might be like to go all the way to the ground without a parachute. And when you start thinking about that and justifying it in your head, it's time to move on. So I did. I ended up as a response manager for Sprint Nextel, which is kind of weird, but in major disasters, the telecom network comes down. No one can use their phone. The power's out. So I worked on projects where we built these massive mobile infrastructure trucks hooked to satellites called SatColts, satellite cells on light truck. And we could drive them almost anywhere, set them up and set up a microcellular network so the first responders could show up. And we would hand out phones so they could work while the network recovered. And I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to respond to Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, Wilma. Hurricane Wilma, I didn't even leave. I rode out Hurricane Wilma in a 40-foot RV against the side of a building because I just didn't want to get into the northbound conga line out of Louisiana. Dumb idea, but I did it. Funny part is the next day I got up and I drove down the road through 3 feet of water and Waffle House was already open. So if you are ever in a hurricane or disaster impacted area, just find a Waffle House. They're going to have food, I promise. We did participate in the Virginia Tech shooting, providing cellular support setting up a private network because all of the media showed up and they really took all of the data away from the police officers. So we set up something private for them. Right across the street from the Delaware State University shooting, the Greensburg, Kansas tornado, which was crazy. Bunch of wildfires happens every year. A couple of NASCAR events. I went to the Oscars one year, which was really interesting, and I saw nobody, but that's okay because I was there. No one saw me. I didn't see them. After a couple of years of that, Sprint Nextel, the merger became a little wacky, and I decided I would leave, and I became a federal consultant for TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. And I'm just going to go ahead and float this out there. All the problems at the airport, not my fault. Very interesting place to work. I did go downtown finally to Homeland Security headquarters and worked for the office of the CIO. After about 2 years, I decided I'd had enough. Began working for Velociteach as an instructor, teaching PMP, leadership, fundamentals, bunch of stuff. Because I had the bug. As you can tell, I like to talk, so I like an audience. And one day, PMI called me and said, "Hey, how would you like to be a Risk SME, a subject matter expert for PMBOK 6?" And I went, "Sure. How many people have signed up?" And they said, "Well, you would be number 4. So if anything is wrong with the risk chapter in PMBOK 6, that is absolutely my fault. There were only 4 of us. Not making it up. I do consider myself the master of common sense when it comes to risk now, because I'm well grounded with my latest and last son, who's about to be 14, and a kind and loving wife who keeps me grounded quite well. But the one thing I have noticed is my risk tolerance has evolved over time. If you look in this upper left-hand photo, that's a wee picture of me when I was 5 trying out my first cup of coffee. I love coffee. I will drink 4, 5, 6 cups a day and then go to bed. I love coffee. Have ever since. When I was 17, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and this is going to lead somewhere. So I went to a recruiter and said, "I think I'd like to join the Army." And he said, "Well, what would you like to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And his eyes lit up. And he said, "What do you know about the infantry?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Would you like to see a video?" Well, of course I want to see a video. Showed me a video. I signed up. And that second photo is me realizing 5 minutes later that I had made a mistake. Fast forward a few months, another guy shows up and says, "We need mechanized infantrymen. Why walk to the fight when you can drive to the fight?" And I thought, that's half my problem right there. Showed me a video. It worked before, worked again. Boom. I was a mechanized infantryman. Next thing you know, I'm in northern Kuwait for the first Iraq War. Came back from that. Another recruiter showed up and said, "You've been all you can be. How would you like to be more?" And join Special Forces. And of course, by now I've got it down. I said, "Do you have a video?" And they've got it down too. Showed me a video. I signed up, became spring loaded, barrel chested, beady eyed freedom fighter. Ended up on a military free fall team as a communications expert. And I loved it until I really started thinking about riding all the way into the ground, um, because I had crossed the line between rational and irrational. So I left. I've jumped as high as 18,000 feet at 2 a.m. And I got to tell you, it's a rush. And one day it just wasn't fun anymore. So I left. Got out. That last photo on the bottom left became the consummate professional you see before you now. And now the wildest I get is my 5 a.m. kickboxing class that I lead 5 times a week, and my one MMA class where I get beat up by a Bellator ranked fighter. I'm 2 weeks ago, I had a nice black eye, so I'm glad it's gone. So fast forward. I left the Army. That is not a picture of me. And I got into project management, which that is project management. You ride a bike and everything falls off of it. And then one day you think, you know what, I've got this project management stuff figured out, so I'm going to do something else. And you become a risk manager. And risk management is like riding a bike. only the bike's on fire and you're on fire and everything is on fire because you're in hell. That is risk management. And I love it. Through the evolution of my risk methodology and my risk mindset, I started to put a couple of things together. And it really began to strike home when EQ came out. What is your emotional intelligence? Very popular. If you've never done an EQ test, I strongly recommend this one from Dr. Bradberry. So I took it, I loved it. EQ is based on a couple of different things, and we're going to talk about it. So there's EQ, basically two categories. There is the me, as I call it, and then there is the we. Well, the me is my self awareness. What are my triggers? And if I know my triggers, can I manage them? The interweb and TikTok is full of people who clearly do not understand their triggers and have no interest in controlling them. You know them. Once you get past the me, there is the we. Do you empathize with others? Can you connect with them? A lot of people can't. And if you can connect with them, do you work to maintain those relationships? So that's how I think of EQ. It is understanding the me and then understanding and working towards the we. Patent pending, don't steal that. My results are always very high. I understand my triggers and I work very hard to control them because there is a very thin, paper thin line between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, if the interweb goes down, if my wireless router goes down, the beast awakens because everything is connected. And if we're out in public and my spidey sense goes off, or you invade my personal space, my zone of influence with negative intentions, I react poorly. But most of the time, I'm very empathetic to other people and I try to be a good guy because nobody likes a jerk face in your personal life or your professional life. So my EQ is very high. And the interesting thing about EQ is it's something that you can increase. So if you've never taken a really good EQ test, I strongly recommend for your own professional benefit, if you care about, well, your own professional benefits and professionalism of others and how you might impact that, find out what your EQ is. Well, then there's sales EQ. My good friend Jeb Blount, I call him Blount. He knows it. And Jeb Blount Jr., also in sales, they have sales EQ, your emotional intelligence related to sales. And trust me, folks, we're all selling something. We're selling an idea, we're selling ourselves, we're selling to our project sponsors, we're selling our project status to our stakeholders. We're selling something in one way, shape, or form. We're at the front end or the consumer end of sales. Jeb's point is very simple. If you can't connect, you can't sell. People buy you on emotion and your product, and then they justify with data. Hit the wrong button. And then you have IQ, your intelligence level. Where's it at? This is actually set very early in life, your ability to reasonably figure out puzzles and stuff. Now, IQ is not easily increased, and for many people, it's just impossible. It's set early. Some people have it, some people don't. And what you don't see in this photo is my photo to the right of Einstein's. That may or may not be true. When you put it all together, you also have your personality, the sum of who you are, all of your experiences, all of your personal and professional events, all the things you think and see and believe and have heard, who you are. This is a very complicated onion. That is you. So let's take a deep dive into this thing called you. The risk experience is actually very complicated. We don't think about it because our brain is fantastic. Our brain is a supercomputer that moves at warp 10 on the primitive side. Now, on the rational side, it moves rather slow because you have all the time in the world once you've gotten past the irrational part of the brain. The lizard brain, the limbic system. Think of your five senses. Five. Let me remove one of those. Five. Everything you see and smell and hear and touch and taste, everything goes through the limbic system first. And it is only interested in one thing. Is it a threat? And if it's a threat, is it fight or is it flight? And this happens at a speed that is almost incomprehensible. And it happens hundreds of thousands of times a day. Now, you may not believe me, but think about this for just a moment. If you smell something like burning plastic, immediately your body will begin to move without even thinking about it. Because number one, you want to know what the source is, how serious it is. Is it you? Is it something you care about, someone you love? Should you run? Should you help? 1,000 things will begin to go through your system. Your pupils will dilate. Your heartbeat will begin to increase. Blood will begin to flow faster. The sympathetic nervous system will think about dumping endorphins into your body so you can react, especially if you're the person on fire. If you smell it, is it a threat? If you hear woo, 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 is it a threat? If you see it coming at you, is it a threat? If you feel heat or cold on your skin, is it a threat? If you put something in your mouth that scalds you, is it a threat? This happens all day, every day, folks. It even happens while you sleep. It really is a fascinating process. But it starts in the primitive part of your brain, the irrational side, and then it moves over to the rational part of the brain. So it becomes, here's an easier way to think of it, it's involuntary. And if it's not that big a deal, it becomes voluntary. Can you imagine how small the population samples, the population size of the earth would be if the rational part of our brain started out trying to decide if a bear was a threat? No, it doesn't work that way. It is survival of the species. Starts on the irrational and then moves to the rational. We'll talk more about this. Your risk EQ, sometimes I call it RQ, is very important because it is intertwined with your emotional intelligence and your IQ. It is the sum of many different things that are real, things that are not real, things that are imagined, things that are made up, your personal life, your professional life. You are a very complicated unit, no matter what your friends tell you. You're very complicated. We just don't stop to think about it because we like to run on autopilot all the time. And again, these reflexive actions for fight or flight in your limbic system happen so fast, you can't even imagine how fast it is. The pain receptors in your body fired about 220 miles an hour. And we used to have this joke. If you have a double malfunction while you're skydiving, just go head down. Because if you go head down, you can surpass 220 miles an hour. And if you can surpass 220 miles an hour, by the time you hit the ground, you simply cease to exist. You don't even feel any pain. Now, this is what they tell you, and then they justify that with, and if you jump out of this plane at 18,000 feet, we'll give you an additional $165 a month. And you go, oh my God, $165 extra? And all I have to do is jump out of a plane and let gravity work? Hell yeah. Sign me up for 2 a month. You'll do that. And yeah, I'm a little excited about it. But layers of who you are. Your personal and professional self, because they are normally separate. what's real, what's not, what's imagined. It's crazy, and I love it. And no, I'm not a psychologist, but I do play one on TV. So let's go into this a little further, if my chair will let me. What is a risk? Well, it's an uncertain event or condition that may or may not occur. It is simply uncertain. If it's uncertain, it's a risk. It can be good or bad. Now, it's almost always bad, but there are positive risks. Think about it. You spend $2 on a Powerball. If you lose, well, you lost $2. That's a negative risk. But if you win, that's a gain. That's an opportunity. That is a positive risk. And that's why that bad boy climbs up to $700 million every couple of months. I'd love to win. Who wouldn't? Well, what is risk intelligence? What is your risk EQ? It is the ability to acquire and apply your risk knowledge to influence internal and external change. And yes, I know the K is silent. I did that on purpose. Understanding it will allow you to influence your internal and the external around you, your team members, because it's pretty simple. What has occurred is a pretty good indicator of what's going to occur again. I don't know why anyone lives in Miami, because every couple of years, what comes in? A hurricane. They name it something cool, but it's still going to scatter their stuff all over the coast. So what do? They all get in the conga line up of I-95 North, and they conga. I'm not doing it. Oklahoma. What happens every year? Tornado Alley. It's like those poor folks don't think they can leave. I'm not living there. There's a who, what, when, where, why, and how to all of it if you really stop and think about it. But we don't, because we're lazy thinkers. And I don't mean that as an insult. We have so many things coming at us every single day. We put our brain on autopilot. And you know what? The primitive side of the brain is happy to decide if something is a threat or if you have to think about it. And every time the same thing happens over and over again, and every time you have the same response, the firing of that synapse becomes shorter and shorter because we have legitimate fears. For example, if you're afraid of dogs, now I'm going to blow this synapse up here in your mind. If you hear roo, 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 and your conditioned response because you're afraid of dogs is to run, what do? Flight. And every time you flight, also known as run, that response time gets shorter and shorter. Roo, 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 roo. Run. Roo, roo, roo. Run. Roo, roo. Run. Roo. Run. Roo. Gone. It's just how it works. And unless you try to change it, nothing changes. So let's focus on the what as it relates to risk. What is it? Why do you have, or rather, where did this risk come from? Is it in your personal life? Is it in your professional life? Raise your digital hand and send it in the chat box if you are actually afraid of public speaking. Plenty of people are. It's called glossophobia, fear of public speaking. People are terrified of it. And I think actually it's limiting. It happens. I don't have that fear, but maybe one day I could develop it. I don't know. Fear of heights, acrophobia, personal fear. Fear of spiders, arachnophobia. Fear of the sun, heliophobia. There are legitimate fears out there. But the what is the risk? Is it tangible? Do you understand it? Because most of the time we don't. And then, is it actually a real risk? I don't know. I don't like the ocean. Why? because I got stung by a jellyfish once off the coast of Qatar in the Arabian Sea. It hurt a lot. So I don't go to where jellyfish hang out. They don't visit me at Walmart. I haven't been stung since. It's pretty simple. But I know people who are afraid to go outside and walk in the woods at night. That, in my opinion, is an irrational fear. To them, it's very rational. So, what is the perceived risk? And then why? Why do you have it? And I'm going to tell you right now, folks, if you're trying to change something about yourself, professionally or personally, and you do not understand what the risk is that is holding you back and why you have it, nothing is going to change. You will maintain the status quo because it is where you are right now. But there is hope. There are things you can do. Well, the first thing you have to do is decide if anything should change. It depends. That's my standard answer in project management, by the way. It really depends. I don't know. There are two truths about any particular risk: what you tell others about it and the actual truth. I learned of a new fear today called sociobibliophobia, fear of posting on social media. Well, why are you afraid of it? Well, there are a number of reasons not to post on social media. Number one, you might come off sounding like a complete dingbat. My grandmother uses that word, so I like to use it. Number two, you may actually be concerned that you're going to be perceived as unintelligent or a lunatic. And worser, that's a word in Tennessee, it's beyond worse. You may actually be concerned with cancel culture. But there's what you tell others about that risk, and then there's what you tell yourself, the actual truth. So you have to figure out which is which. You ever do that? Think about that for a minute. Think about a particular risk or a fear you have and why you really have it. And then ask yourself, do I tell people other things? It's a very interesting introspection. This is what I think, but this is what I tell others. It happens quite often. You also have to understand your risk tolerance. Are you risk averse? Are you risk neutral, risk tolerant? Are you risk seeking? In my younger days, I was risk seeking. Now that I am much more grounded, I am risk tolerant. When my family is with me, if we're driving somewhere, I lean more towards risk neutral. But if it comes to a physical altercation, I lean even further to risk averse. I do not put myself in situations where I have to get into some sort of fisticuff conversation because I'm well versed in it. I just have no interest in dealing with the police because they always show up. Plus, I really don't want it on my conscience if someone has to wipe these knuckles off their grill. I'm just not interested. And in my 20s and 30s, I would do that. I'm just not there. I loved jumping out of planes for a long time. Now, I don't like to get on a step ladder. Experience has taught me that I don't heal like I used to. So I try to avoid those situations where I don't have to worry about it. Now, let's really get into the meat of this. This is where it gets fun. If your fight or flight reflex is triggered, there are normally two standard emotions: anger and fear. The first thing you have to identify is, where do I fall on this scale? Now, if you have a low anger intensity, maybe you're just uptight. Maybe you're walking down the street and you hear a horn next to you and it startles you a little bit and you're uptight or you're irritated because of it. Or maybe you just get mad. Maybe you just get upset and start yelling. I don't know. Or maybe you just go straight to enraged town and you start throwing things at them. You jump up and down on their hood. I don't know. Maybe someone, said you were number one in traffic because they thought you cut them off. How'd that make you feel? I don't know. But anger is one primary emotion for the fight or flight reflex, excuse me. But then you have fear. Are you unsure if someone asks you to get up and present in front of a group of people? Do you feel insecure? Or are you just horrified? Are you terrified? Do you completely freeze at the idea of it? I know people that cannot do public speaking. They refuse. They will not do it. And I've tried to mentor them. And I'm awesome. And they still won't do it. Now, an aside to that is your personality. On the scale of introvert and extrovert, in the middle there is ambivert. But we all normally lean one direction or another. I'm a wild extrovert. Other people are introverted. So public speaking just makes them crazy. They're not going to do it. You have to figure out where you are on the scale. Let's use public speaking as an example as it relates to your risk intelligence. Why do you care? Because if you can understand why you have the fear and what caused it, and you are interested in it, maybe for your own professional advancement, you can change it. So, the first thing you need to understand, and I apologize for that verbal faux pas. I'm not even quite sure how I slipped into that. So, but now I've caught myself doing it a few times, and that's really weird. I normally don't do that. Verbal faux pas, as an aside, are when someone says, today, we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of leadership. And the first pillar is, you notice right away when someone does that. So I apologize for doing that. When you feel the fear or the anger from public speaking in this example, lean into it. Don't run away from it. Go further into it and ask yourself, why do I have this fear? Is it rational? Is it irrational? Now, rational is you were up there speaking before and the lectern fell over and you fell and you hurt your ankle. And so now you have this idea that if you speak again, you're going to be injured again. That is completely legit. Rational is you were speaking and you dropped the F bomb in front of your vice president and you were put on probation for a month. Rational is you were speaking and someone threw something at you. Irrational might be you had a dream where you were doing public speaking and you were naked. Okay, I get that. Well, now that you've identified what it is there a positive benefit to change? Do you need to change it for a career advancement or just to make yourself feel better? And if you want to change it, what's your plan? A simple plan could be you prepare a presentation and you give it to your significant other at home behind a closed door so no one else can see it. Or you do it on a camera and you replay it and you look at it and you critique yourself, or you let your very closest friends critique it. And you slowly build into a long-term plan. You present to yourself. You present to someone you really care about. You present to others. You present to your team at work until you finally build yourself up to going to Toastmasters and presenting there. That would be a plan. But you have to face it at some point. Well, technically you don't. But if you have a fear specifically that you have identified and you leave it in place, it's a limiting factor somehow, some way. Sleep matters. Exercise matters. I have so much excess energy. I'm up every day at 3:30. I go to bed at 9 like a toddler. Literally. Passy, onesie. It's a big onesie. A banky, a binky. I'm out. But I get up at 3:30 because that's simply when I wake up and I have nowhere else to be, which is why I have the 5 a.m. class. Another thing that I see really ruining people is self-talk. And sometimes they voice it out loud. Oh, I'm not good at public speaking. Oh, I don't think I could speak in front of people with that kind of education. Oh, I don't want to be perceived as less intelligent, or I'm not prepared, or I don't have good grammar. I'm blown away by the negative self-talk I hear from people. You should look in the mirror every day and look right at you and go, "You are awesome," and mean it. Because if you can't convince yourself, how are you going to convince anyone else? I love me. I mean, I just do. Not because I'm awesome, but because I do. This is the best me I can be at almost 53. I don't want to be anyone else. All of the nonsense I went through got me here. And you know what? I'm okay. I have the love of a beautiful, intelligent woman, some wicked, smart kids. I've got a good job. I get the opportunity to speak to you fine folks. Man, I am crushing it. But that kind of self talk, even if you have to lie to yourself just a little bit, goes a long way to helping you face your fears. Got to breathe. Can't sweat the small stuff. If something happened 10 years ago, you got to cut it loose because it is an anchor, unless it's literally an anchor. And then you should probably get someone to cut it off of you and then move forward. Other personal strategies. Don't be. Nah, I just like to say wicked smart once in a while because it makes me sound wicked smart. I'm very aggressive too, and I've really had to tone this down. I am hyper aggressive when I am startled. I'm not one of those people that goes, ah, and I run away like that kid in Home Alone. I'm more like, ah, boom, 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 elbow, knee, you know, all that stuff. I may even cry a little bit, but it's aggressive, aggressive tears. I know my triggers. I know exactly what they are. Weirdly enough, from the military, I don't like people to curse at me. You can curse around me, but don't curse around my wife and son because I think that shows a lack of respect. But if I perceive you cursing at me, that changes the game. And now my sympathetic nervous system's like, all right, here we go. Start warming up because you don't want to pull a hamstring while you're twisting this guy up. I used to keep a journal. That way I can track all the things and all the times and all the places and all the people and all the risks, all the opportunities and threats, because your life is 360 degrees. If you have something you're trying to change, you have to come up with a cardinal direction, north, south, east, west. All right, we've got it down to 90 degrees, and you have to slowly orienteer into that 1 degree to truly understand the what is happening and the why it's happening so you can develop your plan to change it. You've got to have a plan. How many people, raise your hand, if you were going to the gym before January 1st, which is an arbitrary day to begin going to the gym? But if you did start going January 1st, how many of you are still going? I have plenty of days where I'm the only person in the gym. And you know what I do? I work out anyway. And I turn the music up as loud as I want. No one's there. I have the key. But I have plans. Have realistic plans and seek balance, homeostasis. You know when you're not sleeping well, when you're not eating well, when you're not thinking well, when your negative self-talk is taken in because this project is kicking you in the face, because your dashboard looks awful. It's red across the board, but I'm just going to go ahead and look around, make sure no one's looking. I'm going to change these colors to green. You know when you don't have balance in your personal and professional life. Don't lie to yourself. That's the one person you should not lie to. Avoid, and now at work, avoid emotional hijackings. This is like groupthink. This is where one of your employees that you're trying to mentor or a peer is saying, "Hey, Bob, I hear you're going to present at the next board meeting." Man, whoo, the last time Susan presented over there, they tore her up. And now you've allowed someone to hijack you. Or the fire alarm goes off and people start running and screaming. Now that's a legit hijacking, but you still have to remain calm. Don't let yourself spiral and take any particular personal and professional risk and make it worse, because now you are just out of control. Kaizen, the art of continuous improvement in small changes. Whatever you're going to change, change very slowly. It's the only way we put up with it. Rich, are you trying to get me for something? If you need to send me the 9-minute warning. Okay. Be accountable. Decide when you're going to do something and how you're going to do it. Have a plan, have a fallback plan, and support it with data. I'm currently trying to slim down to a robust 200 pounds. I'm currently at about 215. Now, I like the extra muscle, but I haven't seen my abs in a long time. And I know they're in there because I do a lot of work. Actually, it's kind of selfish. I'm kind of just showing off to my wife. I still got it. It's still important to me. It's a little corny. It's a military thing, but I don't want to look like a slouch. But at work, seek consensus for your ideas. And there is plenty of risk at work on any particular project. Take a construction project, for example. Let's say you're moving heavy equipment in. Are you going to use a crane? Is it going to be a mobile crane? Is it going to be a fixed crane? Are you going to fly it in via chopper or the chopper? I don't know. But seek consensus, because the interweb is littered with cranes dropping stuff all over the place. And that's just one easy example. Once you understand your EQ, you can begin to influence the EQ of others. But you have to sell it. You have to be an advisor. You can't influence the risk culture at your job if you make work for everyone else. If you have a new way of doing something, you have to draw it up in a process. You have to walk it around and get consensus from everyone and get their input. That way you have buy-in. And then you have to hand carry it from point A to point Z and get everyone to sign it. Because if you make work for them, they're not going to do it. Ask for feedback. Listen. Don't have some predisposed idea in your head. Don't let them hijack you. And this is what it sounds like. Hey, boss, I've got a new idea, something I'd like to try. On the last 3 or 4 projects, we've actually overspent about $15,000 because of this. My plan is to do that. And this is what the savings is. Savings are. Savings is. One of those words, you know what I mean. If your boss says, yeah, I don't know, we've always done it this way. Well, the status quo is easy to maintain because that's where you're at. But don't let him or her hijack you. Don't go, Jesus, Christmas. Seriously? I'm going to save us $15,000, you bonehead. Don't be that dynamic. And I've been that guy, so be very careful. Remain calm. Calm equals credibility with your ideas. If you're trying to present something new and the situation looks like it's getting a little fishy, Take water to a meeting. If you feel yourself becoming anxious, control it. Take a drink. That's 99-calorie water. And give yourself time to think before you respond. Get a mentor. Neutral counsel. Simple plans and tools are best. And if you're trying something new related to a risk, simulate it. Here's an easy one for you to think about. If there were to be a fire in your house tonight, what would you need 5 minutes later after everyone got out of the house? And whatever you would need 5 minutes later, you need to make sure you know where it is before you go to sleep. Laptops, wallets, purses, keys, credit cards, passports, firearms, go bags, whatever it is. This works, folks, because the brain is malleable. It's adaptable. It's called plasticity, not plastic city. If you have a short synapse response to any particular risk, over time, you can lengthen it the other direction. For public speaking, perhaps. Do it slowly. And if you're trying to change others, find out what their why is. And it's all personal, folks. Every bit of it. It is all personal. You just have to understand why. So here's what I want you to do. Think about personal and professional fears. Write them down. Think about why you have them and really be honest with yourself. You lie to yourself and I'll lie to myself, but let's not start lying to one another about those lies. Come up with a plan if you really want to change something and try and change something once a month. It's not hard, folks. It takes commitment and understanding the what and the why. Now that's the me. Now think about the we, all of us, y'all in Tennessee. What changes are we trying to influence? Why do they have those fears? Are you really listening to those fears? Because sometimes you can figure out what the issue is without being told what the issue is. You just have to listen. There's only 3 destinations, folks. No change is needed. All is perfect. I like to think I'm there. Or you recognize the need for change, but you're not willing to do it. Now I'm past that. You recognize the need to change and you're willing to do it. I'm there. I'm just trying to figure out how much more awesome that I can be. Because, much more, I'm going to come with a warning label. Seriously, though, figure out what, if anything, needs to change personally, professionally. Figure out what is preventing you and why. That, ladies and gentlemen, in virtual land is it.
Bob, thank you so much. Bob, I've been tracking the chat. I think you've managed to somehow as well, multitasking the way you are there. The one question I want to bring up here is risk. Is risk mean there's opportunity there? And are there positive opportunities and negative opportunities? How do you balance the idea or see the idea of opportunities spawning from risks?
It's complicated. We intuitively think of risk as a negative, but risk is positive or negative. A risk is a gain or a loss in some way. You folks know about opportunities without thinking about it. Ask yourself, did I ever get a coupon and go, holy crap, 40% off bacon? I got to go. That's an opportunity. And you didn't realize the benefit, the gain, until you went and bought that luscious pork and you saved 40%. Think of it another way, leaving work early. Everyone knows their window back in the day when we had an office. If I leave work at 3:45, if I skate out of here, I can beat all these suckers and I can get home and be on the couch in 15 minutes. But if I leave at 4:10 or beyond, it's an hour. That's the difference. You know about opportunities, you just don't think about them because honestly, the threats are the ones that scare the hell out of you.
Bob, thank you very much for that. And thank you. I understand you're going to hang around for the networking session. Is that right?
If they will have me.
If they'll have you, I think somebody will have you. One of the groups we have today will be lucky enough and fortunate enough to get you. Having heard about your love of coffee, we picked this up for you. This is Folgers Black Silk. It's a nice package of K-Cups, one of my personal favorites. You have a Keurig, of course?
Yeah, I've got a Keurig.
Oh, okay, that'll be there. If not, we did have a plan B because sometimes I can't get those K-Cups to stuff into my email box here. So we also have for you, Bob, this special Project Management Institute from Central Indiana chapter officially signed certificate of appreciation. Bob, we really...
It's going right there.
Right, excellent. We'll look forward to seeing you again. We understand that you teach lots of courses, and people can reach out to you there to maybe find you to become one of their teachers again in some other PMI subject. That right?
I do, but let's not get carried away. I don't just teach anybody, but I do make exceptions if you reach out to me. So yeah.
All righty, that's excellent. And the last thing, Bob, before we move on to our next segment of the program here, is this you? No, this is...
No, that's my son. It's
Aw.
one of my favorite photos when he was a year old. I use it for questions all the time because I'm telling you, that kid would wake up and he wouldn't even know what planet he was on. It was amazing.
Outstanding. And boy, I can see the resemblance. I think it's in the eyes. Bob, thanks a lot. Bob, you can go ahead and go off microphone and off video. Take a bit of a break here while we go ahead and hit this transition. No need to adjust your speakers there. That was just us announcing it's now time for the PMI, a volunteer mini podcast. And we have the volunteer of the month. This may be a volunteer that you have run. This is a big microphone. This may be a volunteer that you have run across before. I reintroduced you once again, volunteer Casey Adams. Casey, welcome to the mini podcast.
Hey, thank you.
Casey, tell me, I mean, everybody knows you're volunteering as this high level. You started out volunteering with PMI though a long time ago. Tell us about the first experience.
My first experience. So we were in person and I just started kind of going up to the president at the time and maybe a couple of others, Erica, and really just like, well, is there something I can do to help out? I wasn't ready to take on a lot at the moment, but I was very thankful for the value that I was getting from each of the events. And I just thought it was time to kind of pitch in a little bit.
What'd you do?
I started out just, I think, passing out the survey form, the little sheet of paper where we would ask people to fill out how the event went, pens, any other little thing we wanted to put on tables. I believe that was like the first thing I did.
And then, so did you continue to just volunteer for more and more things all the time as you kind of grew in this?
I did. I remember actually at one point we needed somebody to lead the icebreaker for the networking portion after the event. And I was like, well, I'd like a little experience, getting up in front of people. And I think I have some good ideas of some topics that could kickstart some conversation. So I just told the president that I would do it. And credit to him, we didn't actually even discuss exactly what I was going to do the first time I did it. He just trusted that it was going to work, or if it didn't, that it wouldn't be that bad. And it went well, by the way.
Hey, volunteering is a thing that people give because they want to, and yet there's benefits that come from volunteering. What have you gained through your volunteer experience, do you think, personally?
Oh man, confidence generally. Just I remember when I first got my PMP and started coming to these events, I was definitely in that feeling stuck mode with my job, and I was
Mm.
looking for a way to get some progress and realizing that it wasn't going to happen where I was. And I needed to find other ways to supplement, an advancement learning. So the chapter became that for me, and the
Yeah.
more I got involved, the more confidence I gained in myself and my abilities.
Very cool. We have people now that are about to get into networking here, guys. We're going to start with that. But folks that are online with us, Casey, that might be going, okay, I'm thinking about this volunteering type of a thing. What guidance or words for would you have for them?
It seems scarier than it is. I do. I remember starting from a point of, much like Bob said, there was a lot that I was hesitant about. What did I have enough time? Did I have the capacity? And it was that fear of the unknown. I finally just said, well, you know what? I'm just going to go in. As long as everybody will accept my best, then that's all I need. And that's what we've developed.
On behalf of the chapter, thanks for that initial step of volunteering, which grew into the role of the major volunteer role that you hold today. And
Yes.
also thanks for pitching in today for doing some substitution of some volunteers here to put this program together. And you're going to be one of the moderators for the networking session, which we're going to get into right now. So, folks, you're going to see more of Casey in just a moment. Alrighty, let's talk about how the networking is going to work today. So we're going to divide ourselves up into 4 groups, and uniquely, something that's different. We have 4 moderators lined up, one for each of the groups. So Casey, Erica, Galen, and Kelly will each be moderating. Bob will be assigned to one of the groups randomly too. So some of you, one of the 4 groups, will have the bonus time with the speaker as well. There will be 3 questions over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. But there's a warm-up question first and foremost that I've asked the moderators to cover off, and that is for you to go around in your networking group, introduce yourself by name, your place of work, and then the challenging part, in 3 words or less, how would you describe the presentation that you just heard from Bob? That's the first warm-up question. And then every few minutes or so, every 6 minutes, there'll be a new question that will be offered up by the facilitators who will help keep things moving in there. So I hope that you meet some great people, have some great discussion. And I am now going to go over to the subgroups in the breakout rooms. I'm going to break and divide everybody up for, I'm going to say 19 minutes at this point into 4 groups. Create those randomly, and then just a moment while I make certain that each group has one of those facilitators. This is almost working out that way. Hang on a second while I make certain the facilitators are in the groups that I need them in. Okay, and I got Casey there, and where is, I need to find Kelly. Doop, 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 there. Okay, Kelly's going to move into this group. Okay, thanks for letting me do that. We have a facilitator in each of the rooms. I'm opening up the rooms now. I'll see you on the other side, guys. Have fun with this. Welcome back, everyone. Think we got everybody back that's coming back. Thank you again for attending. Remember our next program coming up Wednesday, March the 16th. We are going to dodge St. Patrick's Day this year. Don't forget to complete tonight's survey. Appreciate it. See the survey, share feedback, call to action at the top of the screen there. And special thanks to Meta for letting our special guest speaker, Bob, out of Facebook jail long enough for him to present to us tonight. That's a longer story that I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time for. If I can, Bob and those other organizers that would like to have a little bit of a post session, let's go ahead and change this to private mode. We say good night to everyone. Thank you for choosing to join us. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next month, hopefully.